Hello, and welcome to the Table Football Podcast, a podcast set up to discuss both football and Round Table. Round Table and Ladies Circle are national organisations which aim to raise money for local charities, support their local communities, and promote lifelong friendships which span across towns, counties, and nations. If you are between the ages of 18 and 45, are looking to do more with your spare time, enhance your social life, and do some positive things for your local community, Round Table and Ladies Circle are always looking for new members. Visit our website at www.roundtable.co.uk for more information. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Table Football Podcast, where passion for the beautiful game meets the thrill of table football. We are your hosts. I'm Shepp.
And I'm Tris, and we are kicking off Season 2 with a bang. Can we believe we've actually made it to Season 2? Bonkers. I mean, this season promises to bring you an exciting lineup of special guests from tables around the UK, as well as diving deep into the hottest football topics, news and views as well.
So in today's episode, we'll be dissecting Euro 2024 in all its glory and those England performances, debating the team of this episode's guest, much to Tris's disdain, more on that in a bit. And we will also be diving into fantasy football as everyone gears up to select their team for the opening games of the upcoming new season.
Yeah, definitely. So stay tuned as football meets table for a second season. It is time to kick off. So, Shepp, how have you been?
Good. Very warm.
Yeah, it's a little bit sticky today, isn't it? Yeah, so I'm sporting a retro sort of, is it 90s? Is it 80s? I'm not quite sure. And yeah, it's not wicking any of the sweat away from me right now. It's it's very sticky. Probably the worst day we could have recorded this.
It's British summer, isn't it? We shouldn't complain. We'd be complaining if it was wet. And
yes, it's the fifth day of British summertime that we've had this year. I think probably. Yeah. I think from what I've seen in the weather forecast, it's back to thunderstorms and rain come Thursday. I think so. Yeah, enjoy it while we can.
So I see you're sporting the England shirt. Is this? Are you still not over the events of 2 weeks ago? Was it 2 weeks ago now? I've lost track of time.
Yeah, it is. It's literally like just over 2 weeks, isn't it? Yeah, because it was the Sunday. Was it the Sunday? It seems like such a blur. It's literally, You can't believe it's actually gone quite so quick as it has. And the Euros, in my mind, seem quite far away. It's like it literally happened, gone, forgot about it. It's now all focused on sort of like the new season and, looking forward to the Premier League ahead. And yeah, the Euros seem sort of being forgotten. A lot's happened in the last 2 weeks as well with Gareth Southgate kind of going. And yeah, it's been a bit of a blur.
Yeah, it's mad, wasn't it? It was a funny. Well, we'll go into that a bit later, I guess. But yeah, it's as you can see, I've completely moved on. I've decided to sport the LA Galaxy. This is the LA Galaxy 2010 shirt in reference to the fact that Arsenal are currently on tour in the US. Not sure if they're playing in LA. They probably are actually because they're owned by the guy who owns the LA Rams. So yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good for you because you might finally get to catch up with the silverware that Everton have got. We once won a Florida Cup about 3 seasons ago.
Okay, right. Well,
yeah, it's the only bit of silverware we've won any time recently, so I'm claiming it.
I mean, it might be the only bit of silverware we win this season. Who knows?
Who knows?
We're not in the Community Shield, so that's that. But yeah, so I've moved on. I've got this season's new kit in the background, which I've been fawning over for the last week or so.
Are the Arsenal kits just as expensive as the Everton kits? Because our pro version is £110, which is just madness. The replica has gone up to 70. And I was looking for the lad, and I was like, he's like, I really want the new Everton shirt, Dad. I was like, okay, that's fine. Went online thinking, the full kit would be like 30, 40 quid like it's been for the past few seasons. 55 quid just for the shirt. And it just seems like everything's kind of ramped up and everything's just more expensive than it has been in recent years. Now, I guess we've got a taste of that with the England shirt. I mean, there's no better promotion for DHK, is there, than, the price of shirts at the minute. It's just ridiculous.
We don't condone using illegal websites, just so we're clear.
No, other alternatives are, of course, available.
Subtle drop there. It's no, 110 has become the norm for if you get the pro versions of the shirts. I mean, if you're not fussed about either collecting the shirt and having it as a like a collector's item in 10, 20, 30 years time or whatever, you just want a normal shirt, there's just no point getting it. You just get the cheaper one, and the fit's a bit better as well. It's a bit of it fits me, but it's tight in places to the point where I'm going to have to lose some weight, I think.
So have they gone to Adidas? Is it the Adidas?
Yeah, so the logo is, well, you can't see it on the other kit is last season's one, but yeah, it's bigger logos, and they've got rid of it. They changed the badge now. They've just gone with the cannon. So yeah, which is
Everton have done. We've moved from Hummel, which were absolutely terrible, to Castor, which are even worse. And the whole dilemma of it in the first pre-season game that we've had, the badges were falling off the shirts. The quality was that bad in the actual players' kits. So it's not a good start. And we were warned about it, saying that everybody's been saying, the quality is not as good as it has been. And just bring back the kits of the 80s and 90s. They never failed. Nothing fell off.
No. Well, Hummel used to be really good manufacturer, didn't it? I always think of the
back in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. Modern manufacturing and all that.
Right. Shall we introduce our guest for tonight?
Do we have to?
I'll let you introduce him. Yes, he's your kin.
So here he is, my fellow Penistone Round Table, our vice chairman for this year. It is Spence. Unfortunately, he is a Leeds fan, much to my despair. Unfortunately,
guys.
Somebody has to be.
Somebody has to be.
Welcome, Spence.
Thank you very much for having me. I feel privileged to be headlining your season 2, and just in time for the new fantasy football season as well, which is, like I say, quite fun.
Look at that. He's setting us up straight off the bat. He's setting us up. He's like straight into it. Like season 2. It is, of course, series 2, episode 1. We've made it to a second season, and you are our first guest for this season. So you're incredibly privileged.
Right. I got you.
You are incredibly special.
Well, we all know that. That's another story. Yeah, thanks. And I think, shall I just introduce myself a bit?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm from Penistone, whatever you want to call us. There's been a few of us on here now, but I think I'm the third after you and James, Tris, maybe. Yes, Vice this year, finally, after about 12 years, trying to do as little as possible. But yeah, so I might as well try and get a couple of active years in my time. But I think I know quite a few tablers. I've been to quite a lot of stuff, normally involving sport and football. So yeah, hopefully a few people recognise me, even though I'm not a national wanker, even an area wanker. Am I allowed to say that? I'm not even sure. Am I allowed to swear?
I think technically not, but we'll just gloss over that.
Okay. He is, though, however, and he epitomises table time, because he did actually turn up 2 minutes late, to start scheduling. So, you kind of epitomise table fully. And for those people that don't sort of recognise Spence, or you just know the name, he was actually the winner. Were you the winner of our fantasy football?
Yes.
Sort of league for the last season.
He's not mentioned it.
Runaway winner, I think.
Not at all. No, not mentioned it at all.
The only reason I mentioned it because I was chasing up my payment, and then this year I've decided to actually volunteer to do the other side, and I can see exactly why it wasn't so easy to do that, because it's an absolute pain in the ass. But that's another story.
More for you for doing that.
I think it should be a thing for the winner. The winner has to organise it. You don't just get the money. You have to.
You get the hassle. You get people saying fantasy football, and you've got to guess who that is. And you get people joining the league without paying, and you get people paying without joining the league, and then all of a sudden, everyone's getting confused. Anyway, that's where I am right now. But it's all good. There's only about 10 of us so far, but I'm pretty sure there'll be a few more of us. I think it's a good league. It's got me like looking forward to the new season a bit more. Fantasy football now, especially when you're down in the dumps of the Championship, like Leeds have been for the last couple of seasons. And as a football fan, it's nice to have an excuse to follow the game a bit more, I guess. I'll come to that later.
Yeah, I'm actually ahead of the schedule this year, actually, because usually I'd kind of completely forget about it and join about week 2 or 3 and then constantly playing catch up. But for the first time in probably about 4 or 5 years, I've actually joined ahead of time. I'm actually set up. I'm ready to go. I'm still going to do terrible and probably end up in the bottom half like usual. But I've paid my tenner. I'm willing to accept my punishment and the ridicule when I don't do very well. And after about week 3, I completely forget about it and don't change anything at all, which is usually the case for me. But yeah, I'm sure we're going to come on to sort of like the whole fantasy football thing a little bit later on as well. And I'm sure you're going to have plenty of tips for us as the winner of last season's Round Table Fantasy Football League.
So we've had James on from Penistone before, so we know a bit about what Penistone Round Table do.
Yeah,
generally speaking. Obviously, it's your vice year. Is it your vice year this year? So you'll be chair April next year.
Next year.
Have you got any secret plans? Anything left field that, or is it all really hush hush at the moment?
Not really. I mean, just a bit of stability this year. So, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people know Penistone, and a lot of people know that we used to be quite, probably like, not a charity sort of table, but we're definitely doing a lot of things for the local community, and that was kind of the main focus. And I think over the last few years, we've kind of been becoming a bit more aligned with the national model, a bit more about socials, and a bit more about doing stuff for us. And I think over the last couple of years, kind of just changing the way we work as a table has caused a bit of friction, it caused a bit of not a full hoo-ha with some of the older members, but it's not always, we've not really been aligned with what we're doing. But I think over the last year and going into this year, I think most of the people who are members now at Penistone are all on that level where we want to do a couple of events, focus on doing them, and do stuff for us, and not trying to not be like a Rotary Club, not be like any of these other things that we're not. And that's the main mission right now, I think, for the next few years, is to get us all aligned and doing more stuff for us, as well as focusing on doing a couple of events, which for us is Bonfire, Slay, and a couple of other bits, but not as big. So yeah, so for us, it's a bit basically just bringing us all aligned and having a bit of fun while doing some good stuff for the community, but knowing that that's not why we exist. And every time someone picks up the phone saying we need some people to mow a lawn or whatever like that, just to know that, well, if anybody wants to do it, it's fine, it's great, but we not all have to try and bully everyone into doing something that they don't want to do. So yeah, and I think there's quite a few of us in the same boat nationally, speaking to a lot of people, and it's quite good because it's obviously it's working. The membership's going up. People seem to be a bit more optimistic about the future of table, and yeah, it's better to go with it than against it, I think.
Yeah, I think obviously being part of Penistone as well, we've come to that point where we've got quite an aging membership, haven't we, over the last few years, where I know me and you, Spence, we're literally due to age out at the same time in a few years, and we've got quite a few tablers that are in exactly the same boat. And what we're trying to do is trying to secure Penistone Round Table for sort of like the future, and try and look after that future, and trying to pull additional people on board, younger members, that are going to be with Table for years to come, and try and secure that future. And I think that's very much about what we're trying to do this year, isn't it? And it's not against national agenda, it's kind of with national agenda, but we're trying to kind of look at things at how we as Penistone, which are quite a rural community away from, we're part of Barnsley, but we've got a Sheffield postcode. We kind of fit in a really unique place where, yeah, we've got a great membership, a growing membership as well. I'm membership officer this year, and my job is to try and grow that membership, which is quite difficult in a place like Penistone. We're quite cut off from a lot of people, quite rural, and we're just really trying to make sure that when the likes of sort of like me and Spence do age out in a few years' time, that Penistone Round Table kind of, it's got a longevity about it. It's got people coming in behind us that are able to fill those roles that we need to fill, and that the key events are able to kind of continue. And we've kind of taken the social aspect of that. That's why most of us are in table. At the end of the day, we come together because of the social aspect of it, and we're just trying to harness that and try and make it better, I guess, and try and, we're kind of in a bit of transition, I think, aren't we, at the moment with sort of how we're trying to sort of deal with things.
Yeah. And we're in a funny place, like you said. I mean, myself, I only joined table because I'd moved here from Leeds. And there's a lot of us like that. So, and everywhere you go from here, I mean, we're close to Sheffield. It takes 45 minutes to get to Sheffield. It's half an hour to Barnsley, 45 minutes to Manchester, 45 minutes to Leeds. So we're kind of like in the middle of everywhere. So yeah, it's a bit of a different sort of place, but that table's really, really useful for us here to get a social life, but it's also really useful for the local community because the council didn't really do anything here, or didn't do traditionally. And we always needed the community to do stuff, and that's kind of why we got to as we are now. But yeah, it's all good. Nothing major, and I think, like I said, speaking to the other tables in a similar position, I think that it should be the focus for all of us as well, just growing membership, making it more fun, but also having a reason for existing and a reason for being allowed to go for a beer on a Thursday night. You've got to, it's not like a stag do. It's not like just going out with your mates to the pub. It's to do some things, but most of the time that's just an excuse. And then even doing the events that we do is kind of an excuse to do something that weekend, but you have a laugh doing that as well. Yeah, so that's kind of the aim. So hopefully won't change too much, and we'll keep growing as we are.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, you guys for years you were the biggest table for one point you were the biggest table in country, weren't you? I think.
Yeah, we were around 30 members for quite a while, but honestly, we got to. I used to call it like Pokemon. So we used to kind of get to the stage where we just like took on new members just to collect them all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really ever sustainable to do that because lots of people were joining for lots of different reasons. Some people were joining when we probably shouldn't have even done because it wasn't really something that they kind of felt a bit like they should do. And I don't know, it all got a bit funny, and we ended up losing quite a lot of members quite fast over a couple of years. A lot of people got just. The other thing, when you get bigger, it's easier to hide. Yeah. So I mean, using it as like a football analogy. So I used to play football. We started an open age team when we got to 16 because there wasn't an open age team where we were from. We had a really good team. We wanted to keep it going. When there was one team, we did everything together. It was social life. It was life. It was like every Saturday you went to football. You went out with the football lads. Your football lads were your best mates. You didn't, if there was something going on, you didn't pull out of it because that was kind of what you did. And that was your friends. We got to 2 teams because we wanted to grow and have a second team. And we're doing really well in the first. We were really good to start with, and with that same sort of thing kept going. And it was only when we brought on 3 teams. It all went to shit. Sorry, it all went to pot because the more people you have, the more isolated you have to be to have. Basically, you have to have a first team, a second team, and a third team. So instead of being a club, you need to have like pockets inside that club. And so I think the bigger you get, the harder it is to stick to that. Well, I think anything over like 20 is not a team anymore. And that's what it is with table as well. The bigger the table, the harder it is for people to feel part of that table. Yeah. And then you get different subgroups inside that table as well, with different people doing different things. And so yeah, it's exactly the same as it was back then with open age football.
No, it's a good point. It's a delicate balance, isn't it? It's and you've got to have a good mix of people who are. You can have a few people that aren't doing anything, but you need doers fundamentally for the events that we run, and you're totally right. The social element plays into the community element because it's the social element that forms the bonds that mean that you will stand in a wet field next to your mate and get something done. If you don't like them, why would you do it?
But even just like doing socials, I mean, why would you go out and you travel like half an hour to go do bowling or something with a lot of people you don't like? Or even what you tend to get is you get a lot of people just hide from it, and there's a big group, and then you get a few people going, and it's the same few people going, and then they're just like, and then why put all this effort in to try to organise these things that don't even get appreciated? And we were like that for a few years, but now we're at the point where I think we've got a much more aligned vision of where we are and what we want to do. And as long as you've got that vision and people know what they're signing up for, then you don't need to worry about these things as much.
Okay, well that's really interesting. Really interesting to hear about Penistone. Should we talk a bit about? Well, we're going to talk about Leeds at some point, but we will. Let's talk about Euro 2024 first, because obviously it's been and gone now. We had some grand designs to do some episodes of this during Euro 2024, but I don't know about you. I was just so knackered, and the thing is, there was so much football. It's almost like it just in those tournaments things move so quickly. It's quite hard to keep up with it. So I thought it'd be better off to just get to the end and then do a roundup. So
it never stopped you guys as well.
No,
I was going to say this year, this football just seems to have just been. It never stopped, and it was like the season was, and then all of a sudden the season finishes, and then they're going off to do a tournament, and it showed in the team in the football out there. I don't think anybody really played well. They all look knackered.
Yeah,
they've had massively long season. These superstars getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds and then get put on a plane to go perform like monkeys to a lot of people who don't even like football, and they just basically go and perform for us. And then it's like all gets Roman. It's like, oh, they didn't perform well enough. They won, but it wasn't entertaining enough. If I were them, I wouldn't be arsed either, if I'm honest. That's. And I think the whole tournament was a bit like that. It's like we could have pretty much had a summer off. I'd enjoyed the Olympics, had a few weeks off, and then go back to a proper league next year. And that's what I feel like with international football as a whole. I mean, is there any point anymore? It used to be like the highest level. It used to be the top level. Used to be international football. Players used to care about playing for the countries. Now they only seem to care when they want to be put in a shop window to put a few more million on the price tag, and you get that in the tournament. I mean, I enjoy watching it, but it's not the same as it used to be.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like this debate has been going on for 20 plus years now, hasn't it? About burnout in football and that. And I totally agree. I think there's too much international football. I mean, you can't really trim the domestics. Well, you could possibly axe some of the knockout competitions, but you can't trim the domestic season, can you? You know, teams have got to play 38 plus games plus the FA Cup, which, let's be honest, you can't get rid of that. So if you assume that the Champions, well, this is the problem, isn't it? Is we've got domestic leagues that aren't even. There's not even unity there, is it? I mean, I don't really understand how much control the FA actually has over the domestic leagues that are played in this country. And then obviously you've got the Champions League, which is UEFA, and then you've got the World Cup, which is FIFA. So it's like there's too many bodies involved, and I think that's what's bringing things. I mean, I would be happy. I mean, I don't mind the Euros. I could probably count 2 or maybe 2 maximum good European championships that I can remember thinking that was really special. I mean, Euro 96 was one of them, but then that's probably because it was on home soil.
That's our age, though, isn't it?
That was a key thing, wasn't it? When we were sort of growing up, Euro 96, that was the epitome of what we'd seen from an England team.
First time I got drunk watching England Scotland.
That gal's a goal. Amazing. But this England team they've gone beyond that. You know, they've gone to the final 2 times in a row. And yes, we had a bit of an easy run in this time, thank God, because the performances weren't great. But I historically been one of them people that I will watch every single match of the Euros and enjoy every single match of the Euros. This time, I didn't really watch much at all, other than the England games, which obviously you kind of have to watch as, you know, coming from England. Other than those, I probably watched a handful of matches throughout the whole tournament. I didn't buy into it this year at all. It wasn't my thing. And I think Spence, you're probably right. A bit too much football. There's been no break, and that may be because of the whole COVID thing that, you know, pushed on Euro 2020, which ended up being Euro 2021, and then straight into the World Cup from there, straight into, you know, domestic leagues, and it just seems that it was a little bit too much and a little bit too far. I'd have quite liked a little bit of a break to enjoy the off season, to not have to have the stress of penalty shootouts and worrying about, oh my God, we're playing the Netherlands next. Are we going to get through them? Oh crap, we're in the final. Are we going to get through Spain? Probably not, but hey ho, let's give it a go. Hey, I mean, it's great getting behind the national team, but yeah, it's been a bit exhausting, hasn't it?
It comes down to money, doesn't it?
Yeah, or players' money.
I think sponsorship and TV rights, and you know, that's why we do it. I think it's not because, you know, I would almost love, like,
it's a machine.
If we did. Well, if we say that they kept the World, because the World Cup is sacred, isn't it? That we keep the World Cup every 4 years, and then do the Euros, but make a rule that you can only field players from the second division and below of any, and then that'd be fascinating, because you just get, all of a sudden you just get a whole new competition of, it'll be a different level of football, I guess. But you know, I don't know.
They'd never do that. They'd never link the domestic leagues with the international leagues. No. It'd be impossible for them to do it. You get like the German national team, pretty much. I don't know. I don't think it'd work.
No,
all of a sudden, Southend United have the best team in the UK.
Yeah,
I'd love that, by the way. But
they actually expanded the Euros this season, and there were more teams this year, weren't there, than previously?
Yeah,
they're trying to make it its own thing. But I mean, my coping mechanism on the England point of view is just to be as pessimistic as I need to be, just to think it really doesn't matter. Enjoy the games, but as soon as the game finishes, if you win, does it matter? If you lose, it doesn't matter. And that's the way I deal with it, which I think a lot of people have started to do recently. It's like, oh, it's on England, and then it's like gets to like the quarterfinal, so I get excited now. Gets to the semi-final, like, come on, I need something in my life.
I think the football fans have definitely gone down that route, and you can see that, you know, just from social media, and, you know, knowing the football fans, you know, within Table, you tell the Table football sort of like group, all a little bit pessimistic about it. Like, we've not got that much hope that it's actually going to go the full way. But I think the whole nation kind of, you get sort of like to the quarters and the semis, and then there's this whole England fever that just kind of takes over. The media as well, they put so much pressure on these players that it must be really hard for them to play under that kind of pressure. You know, that the whole nation is behind you. We're all dependent upon you. Most football fans are just like, yeah, you know, it's been since 1966. You know, we do all right. We're not going to do that.
Well, it kind of gets to the realm of religion. I mean, we speak about religion on a bigger, like, football analogy with religion in the, like, the club level, but I think the football is filling a lot of like needs in society, and like that hope and that like something to focus on, and national pride even it rolls up with that as well, and it just gives somebody, you kind of need something to like look forward to, and that's why I think it all builds up like that. I don't think it's about on a football level. I don't think most people who care about England winning care about football. I think most of them know anything about it. I mean, why? If you knew anything about football, you wouldn't travel to watch an England friendly, would you? Because it's the most boring, pointless thing ever. But it becomes something bigger than that, which is what I mean by religion and like a national pride thing. It's kind of just it's not about the football. It's about the something to think about, and something to focus on, and something to be excited about. And
do you not wish we were all more like the Scots? I mean, their fans, they went over to the Euros. I know it's a touchy subject, you know, we're English.
I'm half Scottish, so I can be on both sides.
But their fans, they went over. They had an amazing time. they were just kind of absorbed in the fact that they were in the whole Euros, the whole environment. The foreign fans absolutely loved their fans. They had no expectations. We put too much pressure on our national team. We do. We all know that. We've got far too many expectations. But the Scots, they went over there. Their fans, they absolutely loved the experience. The media loved them. The foreign fans loved them. There was not any trouble. And to be fair, there wasn't much from the England perspective compared to what there has been in recent years as well. Credit to Germany. They organised a very, very good Euros. It was, for the most part, very well mannered. There was no trouble. The police left fans alone. They let them mingle. They let them do their thing. But, the Scots, they just looked like they enjoyed it so much more than the English. And I'm English. I don't know. It's just, is it the expectation that we have upon a national team that they must reach the final? They must do this, that. And I get it's a kind of a golden generation for us. And with that squad, we should have done far better than we actually did.
I mean, we did get to the final. In fairness,
yeah, I think we
physically
played really well.
better and win it, basically.
The way we set out to play,
but that's the thing,
really
isn't it? That's the thing, isn't it? We played pretty terrible throughout compared to what we know those players can play when it comes to club level.
Yeah,
but we still made it to the final.
But that's international football, so I think
it's totally different.
You can't play to the same level and the same tactical level in international football because you've got players playing with each other who don't, really play together, and you've got a lot of players there who are there on merit for who they are. It's not what they bring to the team necessarily, and you've got basically a load of personalities out there trying to perform for themselves, to put themselves in that shop window.
Yeah.
And not playing. And that's why you normally get like a random rubbish team playing really well. That's because that's normally the same players who've been playing like these international games. They're the only 15 players who can play from that country a lot of the time. But they'll go out every game, and then they'll stick to a plan. It's normally defensive, and they'll play on the break. And that's what most international teams do. They'll play a defensive play on the break because that's what you do at international football. And if you go out all attack, you just get caught on the break. You obviously get exceptions to that. I mean, but a lot of the time, these teams who go out and try to go all attack, they're the first ones out, or they don't win. I think most teams who win an international tournament play it defensively really well. Apart from the ones who are bloody brilliant and you just can't do anything about, like your Man Cities of the international world sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think it's inherently to do with the manager. I think he just basically understands that that's tournament football. It's international football. If we're going to win, we've probably got a better chance of doing it this way than what all these other people are saying. And yeah, I think he's done it reasonably well to what we could have done. Imagine if we, a few years ago, we were going out to the likes of Iceland and place people like that.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's tricky because I think that I totally agree. I think you need a really pragmatic approach to tournament football, full stop. But at some point, you've got to take the handbrake off and have that ability to. And I think England fell foul of that in the final because it wasn't just in the final. Actually, it was in every game where we went 1-0 down. It felt like all of a sudden we started playing better, and it's almost like they just had that clarity. They're like, "Whoa, we've got to get a goal now," and now it's really clear what we have to do. So we'll just go and attack, and that's what they did in the final. They did all that work. They got the goal. And then they just sat back again. And I don't think that's necessarily. I don't think Southgate told them to do that necessarily. I think there was. It's when you instill that cautious approach, it's really easy to you just settle back into what you've been. It's a team game, isn't it? So I don't know. That I felt like in that final, and I was disappointed we lost. I wasn't shocked because obviously Spain were the best team at the tournament, although the best teams don't always win, do they, in football? It's just how it is. But I thought at 75 minutes in, I thought that Spanish team were there for the taking. When we got that equaliser, you just feel the momentum shift, don't you, in a football game? And it just felt like there was about 4 or 5 minute period after that goal went in where I thought, we're going to get a second here. Like I genuinely thought we were going to, and it was when they did, I forget what it was. We had a throw in, didn't we? And the throw went backwards, and then it went backwards again, and then it went all the way back to Pickford. He just thought,
and then he kicks it out for a goal kick for the other team.
It's and again, you know, I don't blame Pickford. I do think Pickford probably was the number one choice for goalkeeper, but I don't think he can play out from the back. They don't do that at Everton, and trying to and the keeper is the crux of that, isn't it? If you try to have a press resistant side that can comfortably play out from the back, your keeper's got to have balls of steel, and they've got to be really comfortable with getting, you know, having someone breathing down their neck and just hitting it to the side, or, you know, finding that space. And Pickford didn't have that. You could as soon as it got a bit hairy, he went long, and that's fine.
Well, who are you going to drop him for? Ramsdale hasn't played a game all season.
No one. But my argument there is don't play that sort of football. And, you know, if you can't do the whole thing, don't do it at all. But I mean,
but this was half the issue, wasn't it? It was like there were people putting that team because they were the only option at that time. I mean, we were playing without a left back was it a left back or a right back? We were playing with like Trent in midfield and all these.
Yeah, we had no left
basically
back.
Trying to put like good players in places where they wouldn't normally play, and sticking to a system because we've got this system we've chosen. This is basically we've got to do it now. We haven't got time to change everything. And I think calling for you to, like, people talking about we should be high pressing in a game halfway through a game when they've been playing like a low block for the rest of the tournament. I'm just going to change their whole tactics because that's the way they set up. That's the way and then what they did, they just stuck with it. They did it with a bit more intensity, and it got them through to the final. And they could have very easily won the final if things had gone our way. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. But Southgate were going to lead no matter what. If he won, he'd have gone. If he lost it first round, he'd have gone. It's time for somebody else to pick up the mantle and see what they can do the next step.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that sort of about Pickford. Obviously, as an Everton fan, as somebody who watches him sort of week in, week out, he's probably one of the best distributors of the ball that we've got from the goalkeeping position. And you say we don't play out from the back as Everton. We do quite frequently. And God, it scares me to death when they do, because it's always obviously, I know it's designed to get more space up the field, but it's kind of always like one of those negative tactics where you're like, don't do that. You're taught not to do that. Right when you're like 7 years old, don't play the ball across the back, the back. And he does, and he's one of the best distributors of the ball we've got in the English game from the goalkeeping position. But that final, it was like, he's not normally one to go long all the time. It almost felt like he was instructed to go long. Yeah, every England fan was sat there saying, stop doing it. Stop doing it.
In his head, he was like, right, I'm going to be the one who gets this assist. He does this for Everton, and like you say, he does it really well. He's got a really good pass on him, and he picks out a lot of long balls. But in his head, he was the one going, right, I'm going to pick Kane out, and he's going to score. It's all going to be on me.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could have picked Kane out in this Euros and actually found a goal from it. He was shocking all Euros. He should have been dropped a few games before the final, to be fair. I don't think he should have played any part in the final. He was always dropping far too deep. And I think every England fan was saying the same thing. He was not getting the service into him, so therefore he was dropping far too deep, coming back. And when we finally did get the ball up the pitch, he was never where he needed to be to, nod the ball in, get that strike in. And I guess that's the frustration that a lot of England fans have, that there was a lot of playing out of position. I think you mentioned it, Spence, with, we were playing with Trippier at left back when he's a right back, and similar Foden out on the wing when he's a number 10. We just didn't play to our strengths at all throughout the whole tournament, and I think that's the frustration a lot of people had. Where was Anthony Gordon? We needed pace. We needed somebody to come and attack the ball and do things a little bit different. Anthony Gordon got 2 minutes the whole tournament, nothing more. And yes, some of the changes he did make, they were positive. But ultimately, we just fell short, didn't we? We weren't good enough. And yeah, we got to the final. Spain won. They were by far the better team. we just didn't do enough.
And there we go. It's the story of England.
Yet more disappointment.
But we got to play in every game. You can't, aside from winning it, you can't ask more than that. And there were some good moments. I always think that like football is about. They said like football is about moments, isn't it? And those are the things you remember. We all nobody like has blotched out Euro '96 from their memory because we got knocked out in the semis. You remember all the other things. You remember the Scotland game. You remember So we're lucky. We got to have those moments in three of the knockout games. In fairness, and all different. One of them was a last minute equaliser. One was winning on penalties, and one was a last minute winner. That's football, isn't it?
I was my daughter's dance competition on that game.
So I'm sorry.
It was quite funny though because they delayed the start of the performance because we were watching it in the lobby on the projector, and about 20 minutes into extra time, it'd been delayed for ages, and the person organising the dance show complained, "So you've got to come," and somebody accidentally knocked a pint on the laptop that was doing the projector.
Oh no!
The laptop, literally, just smoke came up. And the guy who was, luckily it was the guy whose laptop it was who dropped the pint. Otherwise it could have got a bit fighty because we're in Stocksbridge in Sheffield.
Jesus.
So anyway, but then they moved us into the show, and like every single bloke in there was just watching the penalties on the phone. And the thing is, everybody was streaming through the same Wi-Fi as well. So like some people were getting a signal, and other people's weren't. And like these little girls dancing on the stage, and everyone was like looking at it. And there was never seen so many angry women looking at their husbands like, "What are you doing?"
Wasn't it Dave Corden as well that stopped his like show like in the West End or whatever it was, and he like they were just watching it on his tiny little laptop or tablet, and the whole audience was watching. He was like commentating on what was going on. I just love that. It's we kind of needed that as a nation, didn't we? Something to actually unite us when the whole nation has pretty much gone to shit in so many levels. I think the Euros, that's one thing we can say for it. It actually did unite a nation in a common cause. And, there were school kids, just literally loving it. I mean, I let my 6-year-old stay up for it. And he absolutely loved watching it. Got it again because it's the second one he's had in a row where he's been able to stay up and got nothing from it, no trophies or anything like that. But I think the whole nation was just united in something. And there's something that it's coming home. It's coming home, that belief. I don't know. I kind of buy into it, and I kind of like it. It's good. It unites us all.
So anyway, talking about football and disappointment, let's move on to Leeds. So I don't know where to begin with this. Maybe I don't know if it makes sense to begin at the end and then work backwards. So what? Well, do you know what? Actually, before we even talk about last season, talk to us about Leeds. Why Leeds, Spence? Why Leeds? What is it about Leeds? Yeah.
So I mean, like I mentioned before, I was brought up in Leeds, so I supported the team who were my local team at the time. I remember going, one of my earliest memories of Leeds is I remember my mum and dad bought me a Leeds top from Morley Market, and I turned up to my PE lesson and it didn't have a sponsor on it. I didn't even know what a sponsor was at the time, and I noticed that only then when I realised everybody else had Top Man on it. I thought at the time Top Man meant they were the captain. And that was my earliest memory of getting bullied about having a Morley Market Leeds shirt. But that was back in the day, so I luckily enough remember, and the first time I started going to the games was the 91-92 Division 1 winning season. So Howard Wilkinson and all of the Gordon Strachan and all those that's like basically when I realised I liked football. So I've been 11 or 12 years old. that was like the pinnacle of any kids like football. Like that's just when you it just means that it's just different, and you're learning something new. You're playing it yourself, and I didn't go to that many games. I never had a season ticket. I supported them from like that all the way through to David O'Leary days when I was at uni, sort of like beating Deportivo La Coruña 4-0 in the Champions League quarterfinals, 2000 maybe. So all of like those days, that was brilliant. I could actually go to some games there, and again, didn't have a season ticket because I used to play every Saturday afternoon. But yeah, I mean that was like the heights of our sort of that was just brilliant. And then it all went to pot, and I kind of fell out of love with it, and I fell out of I stopped even liking football, if I'm honest. 10, 15 years ago, I kind of just didn't really care about it anymore because it just became a joke. I'm not like I don't think many like diehard Leeds fans would even call me a Leeds fan because I'm saying the truth. That I did a lot of people did was just an absolutely like stupendously run club, actually milking the supporters for 15 years. You've got people like Ken Bates just milking the supporters for everything they could. And yeah, I don't really care about it anymore. And it was only when Bielsa kind of took over and it all started being a bit more fun when I started becoming more into it again. Not just watching football for liking football's sake, which I know I do anyway, but only back, the Bielsa days when it became like, wow, this is just a different level. And it became a bit more of a journey again. And it certainly has its ups and downs, being an armchair Leeds supporter, but it's a bit more exciting than a lot of clubs.
Was it Ken Bates who famously bought the club for £1? Was that a different club?
I think he bought Chelsea for £1.
Or was it Chelsea?
Yeah. And he bought Leeds for he wasn't much. It was like something like a nominal amount anyway.
£1.50.
It was something stupid. But at the end of the day, they went into administration a few times. We were in Division 2 a couple of times, and it could have all, it went disastrous. I mean, it were Peter Ridsdale in like the early 2000s that just started buying silly players and spending too much money. And we kind of did it before it got fashionable and before we found ways around it. Like all this money laundering and all that sort of stuff they do these days. This were like back when if you borrowed some money, you had to pay it back. And that's why it went totally messed up and wrong. And every single time somebody else took the reins, it just became more of a comedy event than anything.
Yeah.
And when we talk about England, I mean, nearly winning, always winning. Leeds are just absolutely terrible for it. So every time you get to any sort of final, you'll always lose the final. If you get to like nearly in the playoffs, you'll always lose at some point with it. And it's just that's why we're just for Bielsa taking over and everything just going up about 1,000,000%. It was just like best thing that could have happened to the club and me personally for football, definitely me as well.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult being a fan of a club that is poorly run and is being run into the ground, and the results every week are horrendous. Because I know that. Well, I don't know how long ago it was, but I mean, at one point, the stands were empty. They weren't empty, but like Leeds were not selling out Ellen Road, were they? But now, I mean, I've got a friend who supports Leeds, and he tells me you can't buy tickets for love or money now. It's like
you can't watch it. Do you know how many people are on the waiting list for a season ticket?
Is it worse than Arsenal?
Last I heard, it was 25,000 people.
Okay.
In the stand, it's 37 capacity.
Yeah, that is pretty bad.
Even just to get a ticket, just to get a normal ticket, you have to pay. I think it's £100 for a membership, and then that all that does is it gets into a ballot where you can you might win a ticket on lottery.
Yeah,
and most people never do. It's it's a one club city even, and there's a lot of football fans there. And when we've been playing well in the last few years, even though it's not like well at Premier League level, it's just like when you just, if you're going to go watch a game of football, you just want to enjoy it, don't you? You want to feel like it's actually not a total waste of time, and you're not having your pants pulled down every time you go, which is what it felt like for a long time. And then all of a sudden, it's like becomes exciting again, and goes back to what we were saying before about giving you something to get out, look forward to at a weekend and get excited about.
It's kind of really refreshing, actually, because Spence is the first Leeds fan I've actually met, and I've met a lot coming from Yorkshire, who is actually genuinely realistic about Leeds. And we mentioned it kind of in the intro. I kind of have a bit of a hatred for Leeds fans because they're generally so unrealistic. So they've got these illusions of grandeur that they are like, the best team in like the world and everything else. And Spence is the first Leeds fan I've met that is actually realistic about that. And there's
a Leeds fan probably wouldn't say
nice about that.
But a Leeds fan, of a proper Leeds fan who goes diehard, watches them everywhere, they'd say I'm not a Leeds fan. That's the reason why. You kind of get different levels of fans. So
the thing is,
I wouldn't put myself in that same sort of bracket. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm the same. I can't really have a conversation with people like that. They just feel like, what planet are you on? And I don't think it's to do with the team you're supporting. It's more to do with the fact it's you as a person and a group of people. And you get that with different teams as well. But it normally goes down to the badge. But I don't think every football fan, no matter who they support, is the same. I'm more of a football fan for football than a particular badge.
Yeah, I think more sort of fans, sort of like from Yorkshire and from Lancashire and sort of around the Yorkshire area, I kind of get the general feeling that the hatred for the team that, the ones they hate the most is the Leeds fans. And it's just because of that, sort of like the late 90s, the early 2000s, when you see the scenes of the fans, like scaling the stands, going mad because they'd won something. And it's that whole unrealistic thing. And I kind of feel for Leeds fans at the same time, because you did have a really, really rough ride, with really terrible owners. And, as an Everton fan, we're suffering that at the minute. But yeah, I think honestly, genuinely, you are literally the only Leeds fan I've met, which is really, really realistic about, the real situation that Leeds have actually been through. I mean, I met so many fans that when the whole Bielsa thing came through, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. We'll concede 4, but it's all right. We'll score 3. They were so invested in the whole attacking football that the whole defensive thing just went out the window, and it became so unrealistic that as a football fan, a genuine football fan, as a neutral, kind of pissed me off a little bit. I'm not going to lie. And I've got very close bandmates, which are Leeds fans, and God, I love them, but Jesus Christ, they're so unrealistic about stuff. And it's really refreshing to actually see a Leeds fan being really, really realistic about the situation that they've found themselves in over many, many years. And I'm a Yorkshireman. I'd love, and let's be honest, Leeds are the most decorated club from Yorkshire that we've got even now. We've got Sheffield United, Sheff Wednesday, who've dabbled with, the Premier League in a few seasons and stuff, but Leeds are still the most decorated team from Yorkshire. I'm a Yorkshireman, I know I support a Lancashire team, but that's a whole other story. But it's nice to actually see somebody being realistic about where Leeds actually are and where they have been and the struggles that they've got. And I, for one, don't get me wrong, I'm so lucky we didn't get relegated last season. I would have really liked Leeds to have come up. I would have loved to have come back to the Premiership, where they probably deserve to be.
I think it's probably for the best that they didn't. That's another story. I've got a good feeling about this season coming up. You kind of need to have, last season, so much mess and chaos, especially at the start of the year. I mean, it were only like after the first international break where they started playing together. But this season, I think that they've actually, he's done them quite good, because they've got rid of a lot of the flotsam and jetsam. Sent people like Harrison to Everton. These people who've got delusions of grandeur for playing at a higher level, basically. They all had in the contracts that if Leeds got relegated, that they could go out on loan so long as somebody would pay the full salary, which basically what he did, we got rid of a lot of the, the rats escape the ship sort of thing, and basically the ones who didn't want to play because they were playing for the team, just wanted to play at a higher level. Which, let's be honest, if you're a footballer, most of us will probably want to do that. But what it did was it meant this year the ones who actually want to be there are there, and we brought some nice extra people in who seem to want to be there. So I feel I might live to regret saying it, but I feel like it could be a good season as long as nothing drastic happens. And you just need, like we were saying before about table, you just need stability sometimes, and that's if you've got the right people involved, stability can do a world of good. You don't need to be buying people. You don't need to be doing different things. You just need to have people playing, enjoying it, and getting on with it and getting results. And yeah, hopefully this year that'll happen.
Can you take Harrison back, please?
He's a good player on his day, and I mean, a lot of these players will play for Man U for a bit, and we were in America for a while, and always looking for something better. I don't think he really found his home. He equally thinks he's found that at Everton. But yeah, I don't think he was at Leeds.
So he'll be a free agent. He'll be a free agent in about 6 months when they find.
No, that's another story. I mean, I'm not sure the ins and outs of Everton finances, but as it kind of sums up where a lot of clubs are right now. And I'll be honest, I mean, Leeds have had a really bad run, so they got relegated, and I think it was the 5 teams above them all got done for financial stuff. Whereas Leeds were the only one running to their own means, which is kind of ironic to say what happened with the Ridgedale era. We basically got punished, I think, in a way, for trying to basically follow the rules for the financial stuff. And it's an excuse. I think, to be honest, most Leeds fans, no matter how passionate they are about the club, none of them have looked for an excuse to say that's the reason we got relegated. We got relegated because we kept losing loads of games and we kept losing loads of goals. But it doesn't help when the 5 people around you all get points deducted after the year that they actually caused the problems. I mean, what's all that about? Surely, I mean, Leicester this year are the worst. I mean, they've got points deductions next season from stuff they did wrong 2 seasons ago. Why were they even allowed to get promoted? I mean, I think that's a bit weird. They're going to go straight up and get a points deduction. Surely, anyway, that's just me, just for debate more than anything. Like I said, I don't think it's really an excuse for what's happened, but it just sums Leeds up. It's so Leeds that, as they say.
Yeah, I think let's not rattle my cage too much, because we'll go on for 20, 25, 30 minutes about Man City. But hey ho. Yeah. But yeah. No, I get your point. It's right. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
So who, just before we move on then, who do you think, so next season, who are Leeds' biggest threats in terms of getting promoted? Because the teams that have gone down, I mean, Sheffield United were terrible last season. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like that team would have been terrible in the Championship as well. Burnley have lost their manager.
You normally look at the teams who've come down. I've no idea. If I'm honest, this is what I'm quite confident that Leeds will do well, and I think it's just such a slog. The Championship is it's like nothing other. It's like a war of attrition.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
You just need to be performing week in, week out, and if you're playing well, you're getting results, then you'll be up there at the end of the end. And it doesn't really matter who you play, and the level's quite similar. I mean, honestly, the level at the bottom of the Championship is worse now than it used to be. There's a definite drop in quality. But the teams at the top, the ones who've got parachute payments, you're still paying Premier League wages. It's not that much different from the standard at the bottom of the Premier League, and you still get some really good games. The last season was brilliant for spectators. For predictions for next year, God knows. I mean, yeah, could throw some names out there, but you're going to get the same 8 teams more or less up there. You'll get a randomer like Ipswich. I mean, Ipswich, who'd have guessed them last year? They played brilliantly, but because they had playing with a really good team spirit, with a really good manager. They had a bit of money put in there, but they had a lot of luck, serious amounts of luck. And that's what you need. You need to be those games that you would be drawing. You need somehow need to get it into a win. And they must have had about 15 games where they scored it last minute. It's just like how do they keep doing that? And yeah, it's all it takes is everyone like that, and you're promoted basically. But I'm not sure if the teams who've gone up are going to do well this year in the Premier League. I mean, ironically, again, I think Leicester will probably be the worst. I think Ipswich have got a better set to be playing to stay up. The other two teams, I'm not sure about.
Well, Leicester's manager's gone to Chelsea now, hasn't he? So they got a new manager, and Southampton. Yeah, I mean, I always feel like it's tricky for the team that goes up. Although, in the playoff final, which is the I think the Championship playoff final is statistically the most lucrative game in world football. It's ludicrous, isn't it? It's reflected by
it's huge
quality of football.
Like
usually
£30 million game or something.
Yeah, it's mental, and like it's the game that everyone wants to be in and no one wants to be in. You don't want to, it's just horrible. I remember watching that game back in May. Was it May? Yeah, end of May, wasn't it? In a pub in Halifax, it was just chocked full of Leeds fans, and I couldn't even. It goes beyond the point of banter at that point. You're just looking at all the just absolute dejection, and you're like, this is just. I can't watch this anymore. This is awful.
Well, it's the same. The only way to do it is to do the same as we'll talk about England earlier. I mean, I think most people knew we were going to lose. If we would have won, it'd have been a bonus. But to go in there thinking, it's But like I say, play for the best as well, because it should be a fun championship season this year. Yay!
Well, onwards and upwards. Onwards and upwards. Right, let's talk about next year's Premier League, and specifically, let's talk about fantasy football, because as we have mentioned already, Spence was the winner of fantasy football last season, and much to my not disgust, that's the wrong word. That's too strong a word. I was disappointed in myself actually, because I thought at one point I thought I might actually steal a march in there, because I was breathing down your neck for about 5 or 6 game weeks towards the end of the season, and then the classic thing, it's very easy to forget fantasy football game week deadlines. It's very easy to forget anyway, but when you've got a small child, it's even easier to you get distracted doing things, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yep, there was a Friday game this week. I've now missed the. So what are your have you done a team? Have you done your first or second, third, fourth draft of the team for this year?
Yeah. So to be honest, this is the first time I've done it early. Normally I leave it last minute like everyone does, and just stick some names together, see how they're getting on for a few weeks, and then make some changes. And I can't remember the last time I ever had a decent start to a Premier League fantasy Premier League season. Normally it's just basically start off terrible, get a bit better every week. And that was the same last year, so I started off absolutely terrible and got quite a bit better every week. And by the end, I think I was at 10,000 in the world or something. So I got pretty pleased with that. That was my, when you looking where you want to finish, that was kind of my target. I thought 10k in the world sounds quite good if there's about 15 million people playing. Yeah, I got there in the end. Generally, most people just think of fantasy football and they think the first week is everything. But in fact, the first week is just basically, it's just like any other week. It doesn't really matter. But most people just think that you can win it or lose it in the first week. You can't. You need to get a stable team, balanced with some differentials in there, but with some firm players in there. And you just need to pick pick who you're going to rely on, basically, and build a team around it. And that's what I've done. And I think this year the main talking point and the main strategy, I guess, is your big dogs like Haaland and Salah and Trent. Do you go with them, or do you go with your people like your Palmers or your your Sakas, your Arsenal defence? you can't get all of them, and I think it's actually I think it's going to be quite good this year because it's all about it's not about getting all of the big guys in to start with. It's about picking and choosing when you choose them, and looking at the fixture lists and trying to plan ahead instead of just going one game, just like all or nothing, all in. And if you lose, you go, I can't bother playing this game anymore. So yeah, I've got a team, and I'm sure it'll change quite a few times in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. You and me both. That's. Have you done your
Me
team?
3. Yeah, I actually did mine today because I'm part of the Wakefield Everton supporters group, and they decided that they were actually we had to have a team name that was related to an ex-player. So I've been waiting for them to give me the ex-player. I got Stephen Pienaar. There's nothing funny I can make from that player's name. It's physically impossible.
Pina Colada.
Yeah, it's been a little bit overdone. So yeah, I decided against that one. Went with the Everton chant that we used to sing. But yeah, I've done it today, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking I'm probably going to change that before the start of the season. But this is a novel thing for me because I don't normally do the team before the start of the season. I'm usually like week 2, week 3, trying to play catch up. So I'm ahead of the game for once. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you look at the likes of Cole Palmer and you think, what a great season he had last year. Is he going to have that same season again? Do I go for Haaland, who he did okay last season, but he didn't set the world alight? But can you really afford to not have him in? And similar, Ollie Watkins, great season last season. From the attacking point of view, who do you go from the goalkeeping point of view? I've gone for Pickford because he was probably one of the most solid goalkeepers last season with the amount of clean sheets. Is that going to translate this season? I think the first 1, 2, 3, 4, probably even 5, 6 weeks, you're not really going to know who's going to be getting what they did last season.
I think you have to move quick.
So hard. You do.
That's what I've noticed the last, I've probably been taking this seriously for about 5-6 years now. And the first 5 game weeks, normally I think there's an international break stupidly quick, isn't there?
Yeah.
This time around. But
Yeah.
normally you get an international break after about 5 or 6 games. And you plan up until that point, but you've got to move fast because the prices change so rapidly in the first 3 game weeks. If you don't, even within a game week, you've got to make a sub straight away. Otherwise, before you know it, he's 0.1 more expensive and you can't afford him. Or you leave some money in the bank so you can sort of avoid that farce altogether. But
that's what I was going to say is what a lot of people don't realise is that the ownership at the start of the game determines the speed of the increase or the decrease in value. So if you get somebody at the start that everyone thinks is going to be really good, but they've got a 20, 30, 40% ownership, as soon as a few people start selling them, the price of that player goes down a lot. And the first half of the season is all about value, about getting your team value up as much as you can, but it's about deciding how if it's worth risking doing that transfer early in the week when it could all change by Saturday when people start playing. So I think the first half of the season is actually it's more fun really because it's about finding that value, and it's kind of like a stock market sort of thing as well. So you're you instead of betting money, you're betting points and free transfers on players going up and down in value. So it's a different game. In the second half of the season, when you've got a bit more information, you know how the teams are set up, you know the penalty takers are, you know how teams are playing, you know who's in form, you know who you next call Palmer or Gordon are. I mean, the only reason I won last year is I had Gordon and Palmer in from day one. And I don't think I'll be able to do that again because nobody thought that they were going to have any sort of half-decent season. I put them in as differentials. For the first half, first quarter of the season, they were sat on my subs bench, getting points, going up in value. I didn't really feel like I should put them in my team. It was only later on when they became must-haves and they were first ones on the team sheet. But then, like I said, that's what the first half of the season is. Then the second half of the season, it's just looking at the fixtures and trying to prioritise who you're going to pick and who you can bring in.
I think those boosters are key as well, aren't they? Because I've always historically kind of used them far too early. Like triple captain, that boost bench, those things that get you those extras. I have completely failed every single year to use them to any kind of maximum effect. And I think use them right. And you're right, try and save those to the back end of the season when you know a little bit more about what's going on. I've always used them in like the first few weeks. I'm like, I want to beat Spence. I want to beat him first. And there was a point last season where I was like, top of the league for 1 week, and then boom, straight back down to the bottom. And it just didn't provide any kind of benefit at all.
Yeah, well, that's the double gamer weeks have had a massive influence. So, in fact, a lot of my strategy for the last couple of years has basically been all about the double gamer weeks and planning ahead to utilize those games, because if you can get more people playing, you can get more points. This year, it's going to be very different because of the FA Cup. Basically, there's not going to be any FA Cup replays this year. So most of the double gamer weeks come around because of replays, FA Cup replays, and it's not going to happen this year. So this year it might be that there isn't a single double game a week at all. It depends, and something might happen. But basically, that's something to be aware of.
I've always thought the double game weeks. I totally agree that you've got to try and maximize it, but there's just always disappointing somehow. Like there's if you've got the top players, and there's as you go deeper in the season as well, particularly the clubs that are in Europe and they're in, the risk of rotation, it gets really high, doesn't it? And I mean, I triple captain Salah. I was really annoyed about this. Actually, I think this might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, because I genuinely thought everything was going my way up to this point. Triple captain Salah, took a punt. Everyone else went with Haaland, and he did nothing. Salah got 2 goals, I think, in the first game, or a goal and assist, and raked in the points. And then I think they were playing someone awful midweek, and he just got benched. And I thought, and the thing is, Liverpool needed the wins at that point. I mean, they were, I thought there was no way they're going to drop Salah if they need, at least until I think it was Luton, actually. They played Luton and they beat them 5-1 or something, and Salah didn't play. And that was when I realised, I was like, the gamble's just not paid off here. It's not enough.
I think I remember that. I think the actual straw that broke the back was, there was a 1 week where there was only like 3 games, and everybody, including yourself, used the free hit just to try and cover some more players in that game. And it was historically the lowest scoring week ever.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
like,
it was that as well. Yeah.
And then I saved mine for like 2 weeks after for a double game a week, where I literally got the full squad in, and I got like about 80 points just from doing that. It was the highest scoring week ever.
It's stupid, isn't it? Because mathematically, it shouldn't make a difference. So, like, if you don't field 11 players in one game where you can get a horrendous score, versus play theoretically 11 players who you think are going to play 2 games, but actually only 4 or 5 of them play 2 games, and the rest of them get subbed or benched, or it's a gamble, isn't it? I remember agonizing about that one. I just have this thing about, I just can't not field 11 players. You have to at least try and field a team every week. But
it's a game of luck as well. Don't forget. I mean, it is. I mean, you've just got to. I mean, it is no luck that the people who do well at it every year are the same people, and they play at a different, higher level than most of us do. But at the end of the day, you can't feel too bad about it. The other thing as well, you can't get every point. So most people get really annoyed when somebody's not in their team scores loads of points. I don't get annoyed by that. I think, actually, it's given me a bit more information that they might be good for playing in 2 weeks' time or whatever like that. So I'll try transferring in for that. But yeah, that's the other thing. People think you're going to get every single point every single time somebody gets a hat trick. If they're not in your team, you're screwed. But nah, you just got to get on with it, and it's a long game. Again, like the championship, it's a war of attrition. It's like it's just never ending. It just keeps going. But you're only actually interested in playing it though if you're interested in watching the games. I mean, I find it so much easier to play fantasy Premier League when Leeds are in the Premier League, because I'm not thinking about with my team in mind.
Yeah. trying to figure out who's good value, who's bad value. Gordon is only 7.5 million.
Well, it was only 5.5 last year.
Well, that's 7.5 is still feels pretty good value for me. I quite like a budget player.
Yes,
got to be in there.
5. It depends who you got. So I mean, my biggest and the biggest thing to decide is if you want Salah and if you want Haaland, or if you want both of them. Because if you want both of them, you're not really going to get anyone like your Sons or anybody like your Palmers. You need to find those. I mean, my pick for a budget differential this year is Rodgers for Aston Villa. I'm thinking of getting him in the team. Whether he plays or not is a different story, but he's 5 million. You need to get a couple of 4 million defenders in there if you're going to get any of the big dogs up there. I've got a couple of people I'm going to risk on, but I'm not going to tell you. You can find out.
Just keep it close to his chest.
Yeah, but you can't really tell much from friendlies, though, can you? Because most of the teams playing friendlies now, it's players who didn't play in international football.
Yeah, that's the difficulty, isn't it? You can't kind of realistically choose a team until literally just before, because you don't know who's going to be playing, who's going to get injured, who's going to, transfer to different teams and stuff like that. It is hard at this stage. What are we, literally just under a month out from the first game of the season? And it is hard. Yeah, it is hard at this point. And I think everybody's going to have multiple different versions of their, that team that they're going to start with for that first game week. And sacrifices are going to have to be made, aren't they? You never know what's going to happen. Trying to get those big hitters in. Do you sacrifice your subs bench for those big hitters, or do you put those big hitters in? And it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah, there's been a few changes this year as well. So I'm thinking of going a bit less in defence this year. So I've always relied on my wing backs. So your defenders are pretty much playing as midfielders, scoring goals and getting a lot of assists. This year, I think teams are playing with less wing backs now as a whole. They play with more like 2 holding midfielders in the back 4 again, and wingers. But also with the team, the way the scoring is working. So I think when a team loses, so a lot of the points are bonus points. So defenders will get less bonus points this year, and there will be more attacking bonus points. So I think you get extra points for being fouled, and you get extra points for doing this, that, or the other. It's still 3-2-1, but the way those points are distributed is going to be a bit more focused on the attackers.
Is that a good thing?
Well, I think it means you want to try and find defenders who you're not relying on clean sheet points or like centre backs. You try to find defenders who are playing out of opposition or a bit more attacking teams. They might let goals in, but you want to allocate more money to your attacking players because they're going to have more bonus. That's the way I'm thinking about it anyway. Still trying to open out whether to get Trent in there though, because he's a points magnet.
7 million as well. 7 million for Trent, whose price hasn't changed for ages.
It's gone down. I think it was 7.
Was it 7.5 last year? Yeah.
And the other thing is, so for me, right now I've got not a single Arsenal player in my team. Last year it were either 1 or 2 Arsenal defenders in the team at all times and Saka. This year I've not got a single Arsenal player. I've tinkered with Havertz up front, but then I've got a feeling Jesus might be playing up front again this next year, and it's just a bit and the fixtures don't look too good. So but all the defenders are just too expensive, because I think they'll get clean sheet points, but they won't get many attacking points.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it?
You can see the pain on Shepp's face right there when you said no Arsenal players in the defence. It's hurting him a little bit.
It's a pain for me as well. But this is what I actually think this year is going to be really good, because of the way that they've priced certain players. I think it's going to be a lot more exciting. You just can't get everybody with the same team, which is
how it should be. That's how it should be. You should have to choose. I mean, Haaland has been underpriced for the last 2 years. I mean, They should have just, in fact, 15. They probably could have even gone higher. I don't know. Like it just, I love the fact that people now have to seriously. I mean, 15 million, you can get a very good midfielder and a very good defender for that price, for the price of one player. So you've really got to, and what will be even more interesting is if he doesn't play well for the first few games, people will be sat there thinking, I've got £15 million burning a hole in my team here that isn't getting the return that it needs.
And then his value goes down as well. And then it's like, but what I'm thinking is if you don't get him in to start with, and he goes out and he scores 2 hat-tricks in the first 2 weeks, how do you then get him in? It's impossible. You've got to either get him in day one or just live with the fact that he might score a lot of points.
Take a 4-point hit.
No, well, you can't take a 4-point hit. You'll have to sell pretty much all your team to get that much money.
You need.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
Play your wild card. Game week 2.
With that in mind, obviously it's all fantasy, but who do we think is going to win the Premier League title at this stage? So much, so many times, so many games to go. Where do we think it's going? Shepp, you can't comment. You're biased.
I am biased. Can I say my 2 pence worth?
Go on.
I genuinely believe this year is going to be our year. I think partly because I think it could play out in several ways. I think City's charges are supposed to actually be brought against them this year, so at some point they could end up with it.
Some point before November, apparently.
Yeah. So that could play out. I just feel like we've been banging on the door the last 2 seasons, you can sense it in the players are hungry for it this year. Like they came very close last season, and the thing is, I mean, it's Pep, isn't it? His team will be up for the fight, no doubt about it. But the more successful you are, the more likely you are to breed complacency and just assume that things are going to play out. And eventually that, I mean, I kind of feel like that's how Liverpool ended up doing it in the end, wasn't it? They were banging on a door for a long time, and then they had that season, didn't they, where they got, 90 whatever points, and they still didn't do it. And then the next season they came back and absolutely demolished them. It won't be a demolition job, but I don't know. You've got to back your team, haven't you? You've got to back them.
To be fair, I agree. I really want Arsenal to do it this year. I think Man City have had the day. As great as it is for their fans and their support and stuff like that, I think the charges will be telling. I think this year, I don't like that as an Everton fan. I can go on about that for a whole episode. I'm not gonna, but yeah, I'd kind of like Arsenal to do it. Man City have dominated for far too long. Liverpool, I'm an Everton fan. I don't want them to do it. I'm not. That's just how I'm made. I don't think Liverpool are going to stand any chance this season. I think the whole transitioning managers is going to pose a bit of a problem for them, as it has done for so many teams. I think if Arsenal have any season of doing this, it's this coming season.
What do you reckon, Spence?
I reckon Man City. I'll be honest. I think this is going to be his last year. I think Haaland is in the prime of his life. I think he's going to want to go out and be top scorer this year. They're just going to sell Alvarez as well, hoping he's going to play every game because I'm going to go with him in my fantasy. I think, but big picture, I just feel like they're going to go out and they're going to try and win every game and they're going to have a point to prove. I think that the whole house of cards isn't going to fall down yet, which it will do if Man City get all these charges. I don't think it's ever going to happen for at least a decade, because to get all those charges through, even a few of them, it's going to cost. The amount of legal battles going to go on there. I think they're just going to keep putting these things under the carpet. And it'll all happen. The house of cards will fall one time. but I don't think it's going to be this year. I think it's going to be too soon, and I think it'll be after the current generation of people at the club, i.e. Man City, are not there anymore when it all comes to light what actually has happened. I think Arsenal are going to be up there challenging them, and what they've got is a year of stability under the belt, and I think it could go either way, but there's something telling me that Man City is going to go out there and win it again this year. Liverpool agree with what you said, Tris. I don't think Arne Slot, I'm not even sure what they're thinking about with that guy. He was going to go to Leeds last year. The only reason he didn't, because we had to pay £15 million to buy his contract out. He was on the plane, he was over here, wanted to come, but we didn't want to pay £15 million to buy his contract out. Liverpool did. But I don't think he's that brilliant. He's from a league which is very different to the Premier League, and he's not got experience with the big players. And I think what you're going to get is this year it'll be Salah probably burning out, I reckon. And they've got a new generation who need to come through, and I don't think they're quite as good as they were a few years ago. Is there anyone else apart from the top three? Tottenham. I think Tottenham are going to be there when Archie Gray is a couple of years older. You heard it here first. He's going to be a brilliant England player. And for 40 million, they've just got a bargain. But that's another story.
Yeah, I think Liverpool are going to get one of the situations that was kind of there at Man United. You know, when they've had a manager that has lasted so long, he's built a team that he wants to play with. He's built a team around his vision. I think, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I don't think they've signed anybody, have they, as yet, Liverpool? It is literally the same team. And I think he was right in midweek to say if we don't get any players in, it's going to be a shock. I think he's going to need 2, 3, 4 seasons before he can build a team around his vision. At the minute, it's Klopp's vision. And that manager slotting into that vision is not going to work. I don't think they'll do terrible. I think, they'll probably make the Europa League season, they'll get the places for Europa League and stuff like that. But I don't think they're going to be challenging for the title for a few years to come. They need that transition.
I predict he'll be sacked by Christmas. I know that's a really a bold statement.
That's the danger, isn't it?
Is it a race against time between him and the Chelsea manager? He's going to get, because the Chelsea fans are already upset about it after loss. Did they lose? Was it Celtic? They lost 4-1-2.
Yes, Celtic. Yeah.
And that's the problem, isn't it? That teams don't give managers time, particularly after they've had some success. They don't give it any time to allow that manager to actually build a team. That's modern football. If they're not performing at that level within 6 months, gone. So you're probably not wrong. If he's not performing by Christmas, he's probably gone. And then that is going to be in the same situation that Everton were in, where, we've had manager after manager after manager, and we didn't even have, the success. We were just operating at a level that was comfortable for us. Then we got the European football. We sacked the guy that got us European football. And then literally we've had manager after manager after manager trying to chase that dream. Same's happened at Man United. They took Moyes on. He was gone within a season. They've had manager after manager after manager. They're now wanting to sack the current manager. That's the problem with the Premier League at the moment. They don't give managers time. Things are too quick. You can't build a team in 6 months, a year, 2 years. You need longer than that to pull in players that are going to suit your style of play. The way that you want to go about games. The money is too huge to be able to do that in 6 months, unless you're Chelsea, in which case you can do that and get away with it.
So I think a few years ago, even recently, it was definitely about clubs making these decisions and sacking managers on results. In the last few years, even more so, it's becoming more that's like the emperor sort of Roman thing I mentioned before. It's like the fans are basically asking for the manager's head when they're not performing or being entertained. And I think the fans have that's one thing, they do have a bit more say than I think they used to, because clubs know that if the fans are not happy, it's probably they're going to go after the owners next. So in fact, the owners are quite happy when the managers are getting the blame,
Yeah, and that's one thing Arsenal have done well. Arsenal have done really well. There were times in the past few seasons where they've said, we want Arteta gone. And they stuck with him. And now look where they are. The last 2 seasons, they've been really knocking on the door of getting that epitome of, if he can do that and he can get him over the line, they've done everything they wanted him to do. And I think they really should stick with him. They did that with Wenger before. If they can do that with Arteta, and I honestly think Arteta is a great manager. He just
they won't get rid of him now. Yeah,
no, they can't. They can't. He's so close to doing what they want him to do. You've got to stick with it. You have to.
I think there were those 2 seasons where he finished 8th, I think, twice in a row, and if he was going to go, that would have been that would have been. But they obviously built that. Edu went out to get him. They obviously decided that he was the man. I think he gave him a quite comprehensive presentation outlining exactly what he wanted to do and exactly how long it would take, and the Cronkies got on board with it. And which is really interesting when you watch the All or Nothing documentary. That really comes out that the beginning of that season, absolutely, I think we lost the first 3 games, and the fans were just baying for blood at that point. And they came over, and it was Josh Kroenke who basically was like, "Well, just ignore the noise, don't worry." It was very interesting to see that sort of relationship between the manager and the owner. And that sort of, you have to be like that, don't you? You have to, if you believe in your vision, fair enough. If you get to the end of the season and you've had 2 seasons, 3 seasons, and it's not happening, then there needs to be a conversation, doesn't there? But I feel like clubs give I talk about Chelsea all the time, but clubs give managers 2-year, 3-year, 4-year contracts, whatever. You've got to back them for that period of time. If you're going to give them a 4-year contract, back them for 4 years. Don't go after 12 months. Just go, oh, it's not working out the way we thought it was going to work out. Well, is that because you were lied to, or is that because you've pulled the wool over your own eyes, thinking that things were just going to be rosy and fine? So you're right. It needs to. They need to ignore the it is harder to ignore the fans now because of social media, I think, and the sort of fan-led television channels are big now, aren't they? In terms of the pull that they bring, and in a way, the fans' voice should be heard, but it's maybe some fans are a bit too knee-jerk, and sometimes you just need to tuck it up, don't you?
I think a lot of fans are a bit more well-informed now. It used to be, it didn't matter what happened. I think it's something with your team, and they couldn't do anything wrong, and even if they did something wrong, I'll forgive them because it's my team and this is who I support till I die, sort of thing. Now it seems to be more everyone, and so again with England World Cup, everyone thinks that they know best, and everyone thinks that they should be a manager and are as informed as the people are. And you get when people know a little bit too much, become a bit dangerous, and that's what you get with these fan groups. They think that they would do a better job, or somebody else could do a better job, because the grass is always greener. It's just these excuses, but informed decision excuses instead of just we need to win something.
You're right as well. And you look at the recent successes of managers that have done really, really well. You look at Alex Ferguson; he was on the verge of getting sacked, and they stuck with him. And look at where Man United have gone since then, until they lost him, and then it's all dropped off a cliff. You look at Arsene Wenger; they stuck with him season after season, and he had probably one of the best seasons any manager is going to have in recent times. Mourinho as well at Chelsea. He didn't bring he didn't bring instant success, did he? But they kind of bought it. Let's be honest. Pep's a different level, isn't he? And there's talk of him potentially taking over the England job, and that the FA are waiting for him to end his contract with Man City at the end of this current season. But I think time is really important for managers. They've got to be allowed time to bring in the players that they want to play with, invest in their style. And I've seen it all too often at Everton, where we've given managers 6 months, even less sometimes. We're not getting the results that we want. And let's be honest, Everton aren't a big club anymore. They were back in the 80s, not now. You know, we are a mid-table club at best, probably lower than that over the last few seasons. But the fans still expect instant success. And that's where we've ended up falling foul by sacking so many managers in such a short space of time that we've now ended up in problems with FFP and, you know, the profit and sustainability problems. And fans generally of football, they need to have a little bit more patience. And we saw that at Chelsea with Potter, didn't we? You know, he came in and it didn't get instant success. He's gone within 6 months. How is that going to help? Yeah, how is that going to help them moving forward?
And what happens when they get sacked? They get the contract paid off, and they get they get rewarded for failure. I mean, Potter's still, what is it, hundreds of thousands of pounds a week or a month or something.
Yeah, it's millions, isn't it? And it was same with Everton with Frank Lampard. We took him on for a year, we sacked him, and it cost us $6 million to sack him, plus all the additional for his backroom staff. Then we're getting points deducted for profit and sustainability rules, and we're thinking, oh, why has that happened? We've not bought anyone. Because we sacked God knows how many managers at the time. And it just catches up with you eventually. And time is a brilliant thing, and we've seen it historically. And I think this generation that we're currently in at the moment, we just don't give time. We've got no patience at all for, you know, players, teams to build on something. And Arsenal are the only team, other than maybe Brighton, which are actually building something.
All it takes is a few bad results and things can change quite fast.
That's it, isn't it? It's mental.
If Arsenal don't go out there, the starters blocks fast this year, what everyone's saying now could be a very different story by October, and that's
that is an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I can't see it happening, but then I've been wrong with predictions in the past. Should we do the quiz?
I think we might have to. I think it's time to put him under pressure. I will make sure I put the right amount of time on the stopwatch this time as well.
Yeah, you may not be aware of this, Tris. Tris may have messed up one of the ones we did. We're not going to say which one because we're too embarrassed. And frankly, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you will get a pin badge. So,
just checking. It is 60 seconds, right? Not 30.
No, it's 90.
I'm just checking.
90 seconds. 90 seconds, Tris.
We are going to dock you 10 seconds as well for being a Leeds supporter.
Okay.
We're not, but he will mess up the timing anyway.
I will be fair.
You know all about losing 10 points, don't you? But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are you ready, Spence?
Yes.
Right, Tris, are you ready?
I am. 90 seconds starts now.
Okay, at the start of the 2020-21 season, the Premier League's opening day fixture generator had a laugh at Leeds United's expense, picking them to play away at Liverpool. Who scored United's first goal back in the Premier League in that match?
No idea. Can't remember.
Right. Who was the 100th Leeds player to receive a full international cap for his country?
Calvin Phillips.
That's incorrect. How many games did Mark Hateley play for the Whites?
No, I never even heard of him. 10.
That's incorrect. It's not far off. Who was the scorer of the winning goal in the 1972 FA Cup final victory over Arsenal?
Oh my good God. Norman Hunter.
Nope.
Bobby Charlton.
You don't get a second guess.
Was it Bobby Charlton?
We'll come back to it. Leeds United were formed in 1920, but in fact came into existence in 1904. What was their original name?
Leeds City.
Very good. Winning their first FA Cup in 1972, Leeds defeated which team in the final?
Manchester United.
That's incorrect.
Time is up.
We literally gave you the answer about 2 questions ago today.
Did you?
Go back. We'll go back. Let's rewind.
So I thought you said that these questions were supposed to be easy because they were not easy.
They were quite difficult, to be fair. They are from the same website that I always use. So question 1: the person who scored in the opening fixture against Liverpool in the Premier League 2020. It was Harrison. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that. Can I have that one? It froze up when you were asking me, so I don't. Yeah.
You definitely answered a different name. Who was the 100th Leeds player to receive a full international cap for his country? Was someone called Paddy Kisnorbo.
The face says it all.
Represented Australia in 2009 against the Republic of Ireland. Number 3, how many games did Mark Hateley play for the Whites? The answer was 6. You guessed 10. That was somebody who played for Leeds in 1996, which is very, very fringe player if he only played 6 times. But anyway, scorer of the winning goal in the 1972 FA Cup final victory over Arsenal was Alan Clark. You got the Leeds City one right. And then question 6 was, who did you beat in the 1972 FA Cup final? The answer was Arsenal. And I can't remember who you guessed in the end.
No,
but,
okay, you just mentioned it. Yeah.
This does happen a little bit with these questions. They tend to sort of...
So how come I did the Norwich one a few weeks ago and I got more than James?
It's the pressure. It's the pressure of the situation.
It's
That's what
it is. It's the
questions.
I promise I had nothing to do with the questions this week at all.
It's not a precise science, but one is better.
I think on bottom. And in fact, Leeds were formed in 1919, not 1920. So that should be a bonus point.
Is that what it said? Did it say 1920?
Yeah. And I knew it was Leeds City because we used to play Leeds City when I used to play for Goldison Spurs in the Yorkshire Old Boys League for many years.
Adjudicator is checking.
Are you saying 1919?
Yes, that's when they became Leeds United.
Yes, it does say in the answer, technically. Leeds City was formed in 1904. In 1919, they were forcibly dissolved for financial irregularities.
There's a bit of
itself, isn't it?
Consistency in that, isn't it?
Exactly. They're ahead of the time.
Oh dear, brilliant. So there we go, and it does say, okay. So the club was reformed in 1919, but you weren't elected to the 2nd division of the Football League until the year after. So there we go.
1919. I mean, you could have asked me about anything to do with like David O'Leary sort of like era, or Howard Wilkinson or Bielsa. You picked the part of Leeds United history where I didn't like Leeds United.
Welcome to the Grudge Bearers Club. If Chris had asked me any question about Arsenal post about 1985, I probably would have been all right.
And that would have been far too easy.
Oh dear. That brings us to the end then. Thanks everyone for watching or listening, and thank you Tris. Good to see you again. Thank you, Spence, for giving us your time this evening. Hope you enjoyed it.
Having me. Yeah, good.
So this was episode 1 of series 2. We'll be recording another one. We're aiming to do about one of these a month, so we'll be looking to do another one probably towards the beginning of September, when we would have had probably a couple of Premiership games by then, I think.
Hopefully.
And we'll be able to answer some of the questions that had been posed today about how well each team's doing and who's likely to be the better players in fantasy football. Get your fantasy football teams in. If you haven't signed up yet, get signed up.
Pinned message or look in the header of the WhatsApp group and it'll tell you how to do it. Don't pay with the name called fantasy football.
So what he's saying is make sure you only pay just using fantasy football as a note.
Just to make your life a hell of a lot more difficult. And of course, the good news is as well, we're also on sort of Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well now.
We are, yes, that's a good point. Yeah, so give us a like or a follow on those platforms. But we'll be releasing some more information about all of the other platforms we're streaming on in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Watch this space. Right. Thank you very much, gents, and we'll see you all next
RTBI.
RTBI.